Today I will finally finish this sketchbook. I'm going to show you lots of ideas on how you can quickly fill your sketchbook. These are not masterpieces, they're not meant to be the best artwork that you've ever created, but they can be a really good idea to get out of a rut, to overcome perfectionism, or just help finish that sketchbook. So let's head right in. So these are the pages that are still missing in this sketchbook. It's the first double page spread and then the last two double page spreads. So I'm going to fill all of these in this video, and then next week there's going to be a sketchbook tour, which is going to be very exciting. So you can see that I started on this left page, and I started by painting this yellow color and colored the entire page in it. I dried it with my heating tool because this one has a lot of layers and we're gonna need to let them dry in between. Now I'm using the negative painting technique, which I've been really loving lately, and I'm painting with this very light green tone, and I'm leaving some parts out, and those are going to be all different shaped cacti. And you can see again, I'm using the heating tool in between all of the layers because this was just the first one. Now I'm using a darker green shade and I'm doing the same thing again. And you can do this technique with so many different shapes. I've done it in different ways now, and I believe I saw something very similar to this on Pinterest, and so I decided I want to do this with cacti as well. It sounds really fun, and so I did, and I just gradually moved on to darker green tones. You can see now I'm using a really dark green tone. And now it appears as though the lighter colors are more in the foreground. So the yellow cacti are closer to us, and the ones that are darker are farther behind, and it looks a little bit like they've been cut out because we painted around everything, and I really like this look. And this one was fairly quickly if you have a hairdryer or a heating tool that you can use to let each layer dry more quickly. Otherwise you will be waiting for a while to let each layer dry. But if you want to be quick, then that's the way to do it. I also added in a few details to the cacti. I didn't want to overdo it. I just did a few details to the first row to really sell the point what that is, but it is very stylized and just a very quick illustration. Then on the right side of this spread, I started to do some dots, and then I connected all those dots, and I just used a pen for that. And you can see that this pattern is starting to appear. I've seen this in a lot of different ways all over the internet over the years. People have done this and added in shading with colored pencils. They have colored this in or left this with the pen as is. This is just something that's pretty mindless, pretty easy, and it was also fairly quick in the way that I did it. Of course, you could spend a lot more time on this if you want to. So if you're looking for an art idea that is a little bit more elaborate, you could make it that. You could add more details and add shading and all kinds of stuff, but I just kept it fairly simple and then colored it in with watercolors, which is optional because you can keep it completely simple. I wanted to add a little something, so I did end up coloring it in with similar colors to the ones that we had on the left page. And these are just different green tones and a teal tone, and I believe I added in a little bit of yellow as well. And I did a little bit of shading. I made the areas towards where the lines meet, where the dots previously were. I made those areas a little bit darker, and I also made all of the areas that I believed would be more in the background a little bit darker. But I didn't really overdo it too much with all of the shading because overall, this is about how to fill a sketchbook quickly, and I wanted to make that quick. And I had a lot of fun with this because it's really something where you don't have to focus on making it look good or making it look intricate or whatever. You can just play around and really enjoy this, and it will be filled fairly quickly, and it's a good warm-up exercise, for example, or just a cool sketchbook page overall. So this is how the first page spread for this video turned out. If you want to improve your gouache painting game, then I have good news. I have a free course for you. I will link the sign up in the description box below. You will learn how to recreate this simple gouache landscape, and I show you a little bit of the tips and tricks and techniques that I use when I paint with gouache. So make sure that you sign up to the free course. Again, I will leave it in the description box below for you to sign up. Now we're flipping the page, and I'm doing the last page spread of this sketchbook. And on the left, I'm starting to paint this very doodly rainbow. This is going to be very simple as well. We just have a lot of lines and dots in different colors, and I really like the simplicity of that one. I think it looks really cute, and it looks like something that people would hang up in a nursery as decor. So it kind of reminded me of that, and I just made sure that I have different colors and they are in the order of the rainbow somewhat, even though this is not what a rainbow looks like. Obviously, it's not the correct order either, I think, but it's just, it goes from the yellow to the blue tone without any colors in between that don't make sense. If that makes any sense, I don't know. But you can see what I did. I did lines, dots, and that's basically it. And then already moved on to the right side. So that one was fairly quickly. And on the right, I painted everything with this teal-ish blue tone, so it almost looks like a little bit greener indigo tone, something like that, and just made a little bit of a background there. And I went back and forth a little bit because I wasn't sure if I wanted to have watercolor texture or not. I opted for a little bit of texture but not too much, and then I added in gouache. So I started this with watercolors, and then I used gouache for the foreground, and I painted these very, very simplified flowers. So these, I believe I've seen stuff like that all over the internet, all over Pinterest. Of course, my Pinterest shows me stuff like that now. It knows what I want to see. And I've seen this in so many different variations. And I just wanted to force myself to keep it simple, because with these things, it's pretty easy to overwork it. But that was definitely not the goal for this one. So I tried to keep it as simple as possible. I might revisit this idea in the future as well and add just a little bit more details, because I believe there is probably the ideal in between this and adding in a lot of details. So I might revisit this idea at one point, because I really enjoyed doing this and I like the idea of it, but I feel like it could have had a little bit more details, but I just did not want to overdo it for this video. But if you do this, feel free to change it up in any way. It's just these very simplified shapes of the flowers. And I mean, if the background was a little even darker, I think it would look even better. I don't know what I did with the sparkles, honestly. I thought that they would add something to the page, but honestly, I don't know if they did. I don't know if it makes it better, but that's where I ended up. And then I moved on with the first page spread of the sketchbook, and again, keeping it pretty simple here. And I was painting the simplest landscape that I could possibly get myself to do. I was using this gigantic flat brush in order to not overthink stuff, and in order to not add too much. This could be a really good idea for you if you want to loosen up a little bit and you don't want to paint out every single intricate detail with a tiny brush. And as much as I love to do that every now and then, you just have to get a big brush and just map things out and do things in a rough way, especially in a sketchbook. Just play around with ideas and color combinations, and then you can go from there. If you really like the illustration that you made, but you would prefer it with a little bit more detail or just a little bit more clearly executed, then you can take the idea and move on to another page or a different sheet of paper, and then use the idea and make it a more full-fledged illustration. But here we just have this very simple thing, and I have this tree in the foreground that's a little bit more on the not so simple side. I'm really struggling with my words today, but I'm doing the best I can here, y'all. I'm recording this voiceover pretty much last minute, so let's just be glad that we are here right now. I am writing the date where I started the sketchbook, like the month that I started the sketchbook, and the month that I finally finished the sketchbook. You can see this was a long time in the making. So the sketchbook tour is surely gonna be interesting because you can see a lot of growth in this book. And this was definitely not my favorite sketchbook. I really did not enjoy the paper of this book. So this has always been my book where I really experiment and don't force myself to make it look good. But at this point, I'm over it. I'm so over this book. I'm so glad it's finally finished. This is a good idea for your first page of your sketchbook to write those dates in. I just had to look back on when this sketchbook first appeared in my videos and when I painted the first page, which was not the first page of the book, but just the first page that I decided to paint. I usually leave some space for later on, so it's not as daunting when you start on the 5th page of a sketchbook as it could be to start on the very first page. So I usually start a while into the book, a few pages into the book, and I just looked back on when I created that content, and it's been a while in the making. You can see even more ideas on how to fill your sketchbook quickly in this video, so I recommend watching this one next.